Some prayers fail not because God didn't hear them, but because right after praying, we walked into the very places that canceled what we just asked for. What if I told you that where you go after prayer can determine whether your breakthrough manifests or disappears? Prayer opens doors in the spirit, but some places shut them instantly. And today we're uncovering 7 dangerous places you should never visit after praying, because they can block the very blessings you've been asking God for. Let's begin with something most people never think about, that a place of gossip. You kneel to pray asking God for favor, peace, or guidance. But the moment you get up, you walk into a conversation that tears someone down. Understand this, gossip is poison to answered prayers. James 3:10 says, "Out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing." My brothers, this should not be. When you pray, your words carry spiritual weight. But when those same lips speak evil, you mix blessing with curse. Gossip is not just small talk, it's a spiritual contamination that silences heaven's response. After you pray, avoid any room, group chat, or meeting where others' names become entertainment. You cannot seek God's presence and then step into the presence of mockers. The second place is the circle of doubt. This isn't always physical. It can be the company of people who make you question everything you just prayed for. You tell someone what you're believing God for, and they respond with, "Be realistic." That's not encouragement. That's spiritual sabotage. Mark 6:5 says even Jesus could do no mighty works in his hometown because of their unbelief. The atmosphere of doubt kills the seed of faith before it can grow. If you want your prayers to produce results, protect your faith. After praying, avoid environments where negativity reigns and unbelief is disguised as advice. Remember, faith and fear cannot share the same room. The third place you must avoid after prayer is the place of sin. You were delivered from a... Prayer brings cleansing, restoration, and power. But if you go right back into the same environment that tempted you before, you undo what you just built. Jesus told the man he healed, "Go and sin no more, lest something worse happens to you." John 5:14. That means every deliverance comes with a responsibility. Stay away from what God just pulled you out of. For some, that's a relationship that drags you back into compromise. For others, it's a physical location, a club, a party, a chat room where your spirit weakens. After prayer, your spirit is open, sensitive, and holy. Don't take that purity back into darkness. The fourth place is the hot room of complaint. You prayed, but when answers don't come instantly, you start complaining. Why is God taking so long? Why does this always happen to me? You may not realize it, but complaint reverses what gratitude releases. In the wilderness, Israel prayed for deliverance and got it. But after their prayers were answered, they entered the desert of complaint, and that's where they died. The same people God brought out of Egypt never reached the promised land because they kept murmuring. Complaining after praying is like digging up the seed before it grows. When you've prayed, thank God instead. Even when you don't see it yet, faith says, "It is done." The fifth place is the high environment of mockery and unbelief. These are the spaces where people make fun of spiritual things, where prayer, holiness, or miracles are treated like jokes. When you sit among those who mock what you just did in secret, your spirit begins to absorb their sarcasm. Remember, Psalm 1, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor sits in the seat of the scornful." After prayer, your spiritual frequency is tuned high. Mockery lowers it. If you want your fire to last, don't sit in cold company. Walk away from conversations that make you second-guess your faith. The sixth place you should never visit after praying is the territory of distraction. This includes your phone, endless scrolling, or anything that pulls your focus away from what God just deposited in your heart. Right after prayer, your mind is still processing divine instruction. Heaven may be whispering a response, but if you drown it in noise, you'll never hear it. Elijah heard God not in the wind or fire, but in a still small voice. After you pray, silence is sacred. Don't rush to entertainment, arguments, or distractions. Guard your post-prayer moments like a sacred gate, because they are. And finally, the seventh place is the company of spiritual laziness. You know those people who say, "You don't need to pray that much," or "God understands, just relax"? Be careful. They are the spiritual sleepwalkers who talk you out of discipline. After prayer, the enemy often sends comfort disguised as rest. But prayer is not a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. Surround yourself with people who keep you spiritually awake. Iron sharpens iron, not foam. Now, pause for a moment and think about this. How many times have you prayed sincerely, but then gone right back into one of these 7 places. The gossip circle, the doubter's company, the sin that calls you back, the room of complaint, the environment of mockery, the noise of distraction, the comfort of laziness. These are not random places. They are spiritual traps designed to undo your progress. When you pray, you step into a divine transaction. Heaven aligns with earth. Your words create movement, and your faith becomes fuel. But if you leave the altar of prayer and step into pollution, your spirit loses the power it just received. That's why Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray, and when he finished, he didn't go into the crowd immediately. He preserved the spiritual charge. You can't pray in fire and then walk into ice and expect to stay burning. Let's make this practical. After your next prayer, before you stand up, tell God, "Help me guard what I've received." Then be intentional. If someone calls you into gossip, say no. If a friend starts doubting your miracle, change the topic. If you're tempted to scroll endlessly, put your phone away. If old habits come knocking, don't answer. Because every prayer you make deserves protection, not pollution. Understand this. Prayer is not magic, it's partnership. You do your part by staying in alignment. God does his part by fulfilling his promise. So if you've been wondering why your prayers seem delayed, maybe it's not God's silence, it's where you've been going after you prayed. Every time you leave the place of prayer, ask yourself one question. Am I walking into a place that feeds my spirit or one that drains it? Because what you do after prayer often matters just as much as the prayer itself. So the next time you finish talking to God, don't rush back into the noise. Don't go back to the same toxic places. Don't sit with mockers or doubters. Don't undo your faith with your words. Protect your spiritual atmosphere, and you'll begin to see your prayers manifest faster than ever before. Because prayer is powerful, but so is your environment. You can't plant faith in fire and water it with poison. Stay in the presence. Stay in peace. Stay away from the places that make heaven's answers silent. Additionally, make sure you're subscribed and share this message with someone who keeps wondering why their prayers aren't working. Remember, some places look harmless, but spiritually, they are graveyards for answered prayers. Pray, stay holy, and guard your environment because that's where your blessing either lives or dies.